Let another's wound be my warning. Njaal's Saga, late 13th century. In context. Focus, the Nordic sagas. Before, 12th century. The first Old Norse sagas, Konungasögur, King Sagas, are written in Norway and Iceland. Circa 1220, Icelandic scholar Snorri Sturluson is believed to have either written or compiled the collection of myths known as the Prose Edda. Mid-late 1200s, an anonymous verse collection is compiled of the Scandinavian myths. It is later known as the Poetic Edda. After 13th century, translations of the French chansons de guerre, or songs of heroic deeds in English, inspire a genre of Iceland chivalric songs. Circa 1300, stories about the Sturlung family in 12th century Iceland are collected as the Sturlunga Saga. Rich in heroic exploits, family feuds, love affairs, legends, and historical detail, the Nordic sagas were written between the 12th and 14th centuries. By and large, their authorship is unknown. Until the 12th century, most belonged to the oral storytelling tradition and were only written down by scribes some years later. However, unlike most medieval literature, which was recorded in Latin, these sagas were transcribed in the vernacular languages of ordinary people in Old Norse or Old Icelandic. The sagas divide into 5 main classes. Sagas of the kings, mainly about the early rulers of Norway, but including Orkney and Sweden. Contemporary sagas concerning the secular matters of Icelandic chieftains, and sometimes named after the important Sturlung family. The Fornaldsögur, which have little historical basis and relate to legendary and mythological times. Chivalric romantic sagas such as Alexander's Saga, which started as translations of French chansons de guerre, songs of heroic deeds, in the Icelander sagas. Written in the early 13th centuries, the Icelander sagas, also known as family sagas, are heroic prose narratives that focus especially on genealogical history and describe the various struggles and conflicts that took place. The realism, starkly beautiful writing, and vivid description of character in the family sagas mark them as the high point of classical Icelandic saga writing. Among the better known are Egil's Saga, Laxdæla's Saga, Grettis Saga, and Njaal's Saga. Some scholars believe that Snorri Sturluson may have written Egil's Saga, but the other authors are unknown. A tragic blood feud. Njaal's Saga, or the story of Burnt Njal, is one of the longest of the Icelander sagas and is generally considered to be the finest. The saga is written in prose with some verse embedded in the narrative and recreates Icelandic life during its heroic period, describing events that occurred among the great families between the 10th and 11th centuries. Episodic and bleak, Njaal's Saga is essentially the account of a 50-year blood feud that touches the lives of a wide range of complex and vividly drawn characters. Much of the narrative focuses on the two heroes, Njaal, a wise, prudent lawyer, and his friend Gunnar, a powerful but reluctant warrior. Both are peaceful men, but the demands of honor and kinship ties draw them and their families into bloodthirsty feuds with tragic consequences. In some way, in its length, content, and psychological themes, Njaal's Saga is similar to a modern novel. The relationships and characters are familiar and believable. The issue of honor and the consequences of vengeance are the key themes, but the saga also explores the role of law in settling disputes. The Edda, singular Edda, refers to a body of ancient Icelandic literature found in 2 13th century books, like the Prose Edda and the Poetic Edda. Together, these two works form the most comprehensive source of Scandinavian mythology. The Prose Edda, or the Younger, was written or compiled by Icelandic scholar Snorri Sturluson, 1179 to 1241, around 1220. It is a textbook on poetry that explains the meters of early skalds, court poets, and provides a guide to mythological subjects in early poetry. It consists of a prologue and 3 parts. Skaldskaparmal, the language of poetry, Hatatal, a catalog of meters, and Gylfaginning, the beginning of Gylfi, which tells of the visit of King Gylfi to Asgard, the citadel of the gods. The Elder is a later collection that contains much older material, 800 to 1100. It consists of heroic and mythological poems composed by unknown authors. A powerful influence. The, the Icelandic sagas portray warriors, kings, strong men, and powerful matriarchs, calling on historical events in tumultuous times but containing older myths and legends. They present a realistic picture of a vanished society as well as fantastic tales and romances. The collection of stories represents some of the greatest writing in European medieval literature. They also had a powerful influence on later writers, notably Sir Walter Scott, the 19th century Scottish poet and playwright, and John Roland Reuel Tolkien, spelled wrong, sorry, the 20th century English fantasy writer. Never break the peace which good men and true make between thee and others. Njal Saga.